The Washington Nationals just prove it's cool to be a seller at this year's trade deadline.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Jeff, and he's Tim Daniel from the Reds Postcast, and on today's Locked On Reds podcast, we are going to be getting into some trends that we've seen here in this month of July that we can trust moving forward for the rest of the season. That's coming up a little bit later on. In just a few minutes, we'll get into, the Reds have been successful, so how can they become buyers? We're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes, but we'll begin with why it's sexy to be a seller in this MLB trade deadline. And that's all on today's podcast that is brought to you by FanDuel. Join all the action at FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer the rest of the way this MLB season. All right, Tim, when it comes to these Cincinnati Reds, I think we all agree they're sellers. I'm not really sure that there's much they can do to change our minds about that. We'll discuss that a little bit more later on, though, because they have had a nice run of success here recently. But it's all about what happened late Saturday night is why I think it's even more beneficial for the Reds to be sellers at this trade deadline. In case you missed it, Boston and Washington got together and made a 1-for-1 trade, which in and of itself feels rare, but it was a major leaguer for a major leaguer. The Washington Nationals traded utility infielder and right-handed hitter Curtis Mead to the Boston Red Sox for left-handed pitcher Connelly Early. If you remember that name, it's because he pitched against the Reds very early on in his career. But also, he's been pretty good. He's not been like otherworldly amazing, but he's been pretty good. If a guy like Curtis Mead can net the Nationals such a pitcher as Connelly Early, then the Reds should be sellers and Spencer Steer should be available.
Yeah, obviously all that is determined by when we get this X-ray or MRI report today with Spencer Steer's
specialist, right?
Yeah, hand specialist. Yeah. So we kind of all that kind of is dictated there. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Jeff, in this sense too, because the Reds are going to have probably, I would assume, probably 3 or 4 bats that people are going to be calling on, not just Spencer Steer, who's probably been the top bat. We have to know about Tyler Stephenson. There's been reports of Matt McLain. I know we're going to get to. Nathaniel Lowe, who's hitting really well of late. We'll talk about him a little later, and obviously JJ Bleday. So these teams are kind of looking. You're kind of seeing a lot of his teams are looking for guys who can hit left-handed hitting. And the Reds are going to have a couple of guys that can do just that. So that's what makes this really interesting. Like you said, like it does make it attractive to be a seller in this circumstance because, especially when you see some of the names of starters who are being flirted out there. Obviously, it's the yearly Sandy Alcantara is available. There's the Emerson Hancock thing, which I know you're really excited to dive into.
Yes.
Even for the Reds' sake, Brady Singer. Are people going to make offers for him that the Reds could potentially get a bat from him as well? Whatever that's going to mean. So yeah, there's a lot of options here, and the Red Sox and Nationals definitely got us excited to kick off trade deadline season.
To dive deeper into why this trade excites me so much, the Washington Nationals traded a guy who this year has a 135 OPS plus. Pretty good. 35% above league average. He's slugging 500 right now. The thing about Curtis Mead, he's 25 years old, so he's still pretty young, still has plenty of years of team control left. The thing about him is he has a career OPS of 709. And this year he has an OPS of 852. It's a breakout, and it makes you wonder if it's real, and it makes you wonder what's going to happen the rest of, the next couple of years for him. And they were able to parlay this dude into a good pitcher. Like Connelly Early to me is a good pitcher. Like, is he an ace level guy? He has a lot more to prove before I go that far. He's only pitched in 21 Major League ball games, but in those 21 Major League ball games, he has a strikeouts per 9 of 9.9, and he has a walks per 9 of 3.1. So depending on how he continues to develop, this could look really good for the Washington Nationals in my estimation. And I link this to a recently reported rumor from Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic that the Seattle Mariners, who we just saw, are open to trading Emerson Hancock for a right-handed hitter, which is again why I come back to Spencer Steer. And the reason that Curtis Mead and all this links is that I believe that Spencer Steer is better than Curtis Mead. He's a little bit older than Curtis Mead, but I believe Spencer Steer is better than he is, so he should command a nice haul. Spencer Steer, Tyler Stephenson should probably command a better haul than we initially expected. Even though he's on an expiring deal, I think the Reds could still get something nice for him too.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously it's painful to see the Reds having to move on from Tyler Stephenson if that is indeed what they do. But this kind of makes you feel what what's available out there for the circumstance. And you mentioned Emerson Hancock. That's a guy that, like, in a heartbeat.
Very intriguing. Yes.
Heartbeat, I would like to have him on the team. Also, Seattle kind of owes us for ripping us off in a bunch of trades. So if we can kind of get one back with them, I'd really appreciate it. Basically every trade since the Griffey trade that the Reds and Mariners have made.
Pretty much every single one. Yeah, I'm trying to think of
Even the Griffey trade, you can make an argument. It wasn't a good trade. Yeah.
There's definitely some interesting points to be made on that one. But I think I remember too, like whenever the Reds acquired Brandon Williamson and the, Suarez and Winker deal, I thought I remembered Hancock was a guy that they were discussing at that point and then ended up going with Williamson. I don't remember if that was Seattle's doing or if that was Cincinnati's doing of picking guys. But I think that the point here, the overarching point here is the Reds just need to make a good trade. And it feels like they have the right posturing to make a good trade as a seller. Emerson Hancock would be a guy, in case folks are unfamiliar with him, he would be a huge get, especially with what the Reds currently have in their rotation. Like, we're looking at 4 and 5 kind of being a question mark next year, because I mark Nick Lodolo as a question mark at this point. We don't know what the Reds are ever going to get out of him. Hancock is a right-handed pitcher. He's 27 years old. He's, not going to be a free agent until after the 2030 season. So he's got multiple years of team control, something that the Reds love to hear.
Yep.
And then you're also talking about a dude that this season has a 3.16 ERA and a 3.82 xFIP. So things are pretty much where they should be. 1.6 wins above replacement, according to Fangraphs. This is a legit pitcher that the Reds could conceivably get. And I find it intriguing. You mentioned the Matt McLain rumors of it all. Like, would it even have to be Spencer Steer that you get Hancock for? Maybe it's McLain and Stephenson.
So I'm glad you said this, because you mentioned that he's not a free agent until 2031. And this kind of fits the timeline of what the Reds are looking to do with the rotation, right? I mean, Hunter Green, they have for another couple of years. We obviously know Chase Burns just signed the big deal. Thank God. And it sounds like there's mutual interest in Andrew Abbott remaining a Cincinnati Red between both him and the team. So that conversation's there. And you can slide Emerson Hancock to that 4th spot. And I don't know where you are on Rhett Lauder. I'm not going to give up on a guy after his first full season in the big leagues. I still think he has what it takes to be a 5th guy. And if that's your 5th guy and he ends up being
asking a lot, yeah,
right. If that, you feel really good about it. And obviously he's another guy too that has a lot of team control. So if you're the Reds and you can lock up your rotation because we obviously know Brady Singer is gone after this year if the Reds choose to move him. So by the way, this team coming to town could probably use a Brady Singer this upcoming weekend. So shout out Justin Latta over there to talk about that one. But I am excited about the possibility of Emerson Hancock, but I'm trying my hardest not to get my hopes up.
It's interesting because Seattle saying that he's available feels a little bit like what I said a couple of days ago whenever there were rumors about with Spencer Steer and Hunter Green, that it feels like Seattle's dangling him, and then maybe you contact Jerry DiPoto and he's like, can I interest you in a nice shiny Luis Castillo, who is more expensive. He does have another year under his contract, but it's like over $20 million, where Hancock is under team control of, like arbitration control. So it'd be much cheaper. I don't know. Like, I would love this. And the thing that interests me the most before we get out of this segment is that Matt McLain was even mentioned, because I think you and I and everyone, and quite frankly, the person listening to this podcast right now is probably thinking, yeah, if the Reds get an offer for Matt McLain, I think I'm jumping at that.
Doesn't have to be Emerson Hancock. It can be Russell Wilson's baseball contract.
That'd be funny. Can he still play that out? I wonder if he can still play that out. Yeah. Reds country. Let's ride. Let's start doing that. Anyway, when it comes to the trade deadline, the Reds are in a great position, and this trade between Boston and Washington that I saw late Saturday night just excited me so much. Just want to see a good trade. Nick Krall, please make a good trade.
One time.
Please make a good trade. Coming up next, can the Reds be buyers? Well, I'm going to tell you why I don't see it. A big thank you to our friends over at Amazon for this limited break. This back-to-school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy back-to-school shopping can be. It starts with just a few items on the list, and then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things that you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. Like when you buy clothes for back-to-school, and then your kid hits a growth spurt 2 weeks later, and you're right back where you started. Sometimes it genuinely feels like they're growing faster than your budget can keep up with. Or when the teacher's supply list arrives and somehow every item feels completely reasonable on its own, then you add everything together and realize just how much stuff one kid needs for one school year. So remember, with Amazon's low back-to-school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you haven't spent on your kids is a dollar you don't spend on your kids. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. Thanks for checking out today's Locked On Reds podcast, and appreciate you for being an everydayer. If you're not an everydayer, hit that subscribe button right here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app, because you also get the Daily Show, you get the Reds postcast, and all of that wonderful stuff. You can even take it up a notch and join the Everydayer Club. Follow the link in the description down below, or type in lockdownreds.supercast.com in your URL to find out more about this. It's $5 a month, $50 for the whole year. You get an ad-free audio podcast feed, and you'll get to take part in some awesome stuff that we've got coming later for you this month. So make sure you check out more information there. All right, Tim, it's been a nice little run here for the Reds. Yeah. And by nice little run, I say they're 6-4 in their last 10. It's been fun to see them win 3 straight series. Sal Stewart coming up with a clutch hit in the 10th inning that just opened up some floodgates, and the Reds got a nice win. Julian Garcia with his first save ever. I know you did a great postcast following that win and that series dub. All that being said, I think even if they won the next 10, I think that they should still go into the trade deadline with this. And there's not 10 games left before the deadline. The deadline is a week from today. But I just don't see them doing anything to change their position, especially after seeing how the deadline has moved. The Reds should be posturing as sellers, because I think they will be better off getting better for next year. I don't know that they can repair things this year while keeping everybody. They're going to have to make some moves to move major league guys, to get major league guys. Nick Krall's got a challenge ahead of him. That being said, I don't think that they can do anything that they now change into, okay, we will just offer prospects for major league players.
You're right, especially considering how thin the farm system is. And I don't think that they'll be buyers either. In obvious reasons, the way the season's going, they're in last place. There's a lot of teams that got to jump over to get to that wild card spot. It just seems like they've kind of dug themselves in too big of a hole. Here's what I will say, though, to kind of play devil's advocate that I know will never happen. So I listened to Austin Elmore today, our good friend, on Inside Pitch. I mean, he had extra innings today. Sorry. And he kind of made the point that, and I really agree with it, that most teams, when they have a young core as good as the Reds, need to go get that veteran guy. Like, and then, the Reds are a prime example of this, right? 2009, they go get Scott Rowland. And 2010, they go to the playoffs for the first time in forever. And he was just like that perfect vet guy they have. And I know Gino can kind of play that role for this team. But, Scott Rowland's a future Hall of Famer. I don't think I'm quite there with Eugenio Suarez. Well, actually, he is a Hall of Famer, I should say, at this point. So I do think that would make sense for the Reds to kind of sell off the guys that, the Spencer Steers, the Matt McLains, the Tyler Stephensons. But if they can go get that kind of vet leadership guy for 27 and beyond for a few years, that I don't know if the market says if there's that guy out there. I think that they can go a really long way for them, but the difference obviously between then and now is Walt Jocketty and Nick Krall.
Yeah, you felt better about the front office back then for sure. And the nice thing is, like, I feel like the last couple of years, whenever anyone talked to Nick Krall about trades, he said, yeah, we're looking to upgrade, but nobody's taking prospects. They all want major leaguer for major leaguer. I think where the Reds are right now, they can sort of like buy into that idea. Like, okay, right now, as currently constructed, the major league roster is just not cutting it. If we move some things around, a la what they did, and they traded Edwin Encarnacion, and they got back Scott Rowland. Like, I think a lot of people now, having the benefit of history and the ability to look back, would say, you gave up Edwin Encarnacion for Scott Rowland? Because, like, the career of Edwin Encarnacion after that fact looked pretty good because he could DH. He couldn't if he would have stayed with the Reds. He was a horrible defender. That was never going to change. Yeah. But all of that being said, like, this is the right spot for the Reds to be in. They need to make a good trade, and I just don't see teams being willing to take prospects for major leaguers. I almost wonder, and tell me if this is not fair, but I almost wonder if that is why we ended up with Ke'Bryan Hayes, because of all of the different calls that Nick Krall made at the deadline last year, he was the one major league hitter that a team was willing to accept prospects for, because the Pirates were like, really? You want him? Yeah, let's do it.
Did you ever hear the story about when Magic Johnson traded Ivica Zubac to the Clippers? So he calls Jerry West and like, who do you want? He's like, what about Muscala? Being Mike Muscala, who didn't play a single game for the Clippers. And apparently Jerry West went like this. They want to give us Zubac for Muscala. And the whole table started laughing. That's kind of how that Ke'Bryan Hayes thing had to go. Yes. Where they're like, wait a minute, Sammy Stafura? Are you serious? And then in the offseason, hey, we want Nicholas. For Tyler Callahan? You serious? Like, just kind of handing.
Ben Sherrington was like, wait, mute the mic. Sure, Nick.
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about this before we came on air, just kind of going down the line of, in relation to Stephenson, just kind of catchers are going to be out of there. So Shea Langoliers is now hurt. Sounds like there's a possibility he might not play the rest of the year. That takes him out of the market. The Dodgers obviously need someone because Will Smith shut down for the year. Yep. Austin Wells can't hit for anything for the Yankees. And I think the only other name I thought could potentially be moved, and I don't think it's going to happen, you agreed with me, is from Miami's catcher, Joe Mack, who's already in his rookie year, got a 733 OPS with 10 home runs at the bottom of the order. I don't think the Marlins are in a rush to get rid of Joe Mack. So that kind of does leave Stephenson as the guy that if you really need a catcher who, one, is an ABS savant, and two, has found his power stroke, if you're the Reds, I don't think it's worth being buyers if you can get like major leaguers for him.
No. 100% agree with you. And then the other thing about that is like the Dodgers, the Yankees, and even the White Sox. I mean, there's potentially a love triangle going on here for Tyler Stephenson's trade services this deadline. So he's got a lot of suitors. He's also a right-handed hitter. Like, one of the biggest reasons that the Boston Red Sox traded a really highly touted pitching guy is because there's just not that many right-handed hitters out there. Ask any national writer, and me and Steve talked about this on Friday's show, but like, ask any national writer right now, that's the biggest need that has the lowest supply. So like the demand just far outweighs the supply. And, we talk about the trade deadline kind of being like a stock market thing. The Reds stock right now, and Tyler Stephenson, and, hopefully everything goes well with the specialist today and Spencer Steer, that should be awesome. I mean, it's interesting that Matt McLain is even being brought up. Like, I think he's only being brought up because he's right-handed, and there might be a possibility that the Reds move him. This is a phenomenal place for the Reds to be in, and I don't see there being any reason why they should decide all of a sudden to shut the doors on all of those deals and say, we are only talking about prospects. If you want, and I don't even know that they would make Hector Rodriguez available, but they're like, if you want Hector Rodriguez, we'll talk. If you want Ty Floyd, if you want Carter Graham, whatever, we'll talk. I don't think that does anything for them whatsoever. They're going to have to remain with their current posture, and I still think they have a good shot. I'm listen. We've all said it. We all understand. And I know that you wrote it in the comments section right now, and I agree with you. I'm not trying to argue with you. I don't trust Nick Krall to get this right either, but maybe it could happen. That kid from Angels in the Outfield. It could happen.
Does he have a choice but to get it right at this point? I mean, his last 5 or 6 trades have been okay, other than Brock Burke. That's been the one.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Have been the
lone expiring deal that I would be okay with them keeping. I wouldn't mind them keeping Nathaniel Lowe either, but yeah, it's not looked good. His scoreboard that we are all keeping. I don't know if Bob and Phil are, but we're keeping it. It's not really good right now. And hopefully he can make the right decision and not decide all of a sudden to close up shop on his major leaguers. Coming up next, there's been some fun trends here in this month of July, and there's a couple that we can trust. And the first one that I'm starting with is an Elly De La Cruz trend that even Joey Votto would go, good job, kid. Today's Lockdown Reds is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Hey, Reds fans, if you think you know who's going to hit a dinger today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a homer in their game. And if you're right, you'll receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. Best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the rest of the Major League Baseball season. Daily Dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's games, whether you're following the Reds or you're keeping an eye on the matchups across the league. And actually, instead of dingers, you can make a pick for a dinger today. The Reds are back at home, so there's a lot of options. I kind of feel like Sal is going to go yard if you want to use that as your daily dinger pick. But also, Chase Burns' over-under strikeouts for today's game is set at 6.5. I feel like that's close. I think I'm taking the over. Check out the over on Chase Burns strikeouts and take Sal Stewart to hit a dinger today over on FanDuel.com. Join all the action over at FanDuel.com and play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer each and every day. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. And hey, it's a long homestand for the Reds. 10 games, lots of chances to get down to the ballpark and see these guys play, some of them before they get traded. And Game Time is the best way to do that, whether you are looking for your next best seat that you've ever had, or you're just trying to get in the gate. Game Time is the best way to do that. I use Game Time all the time. I'll go down to the banks, post up, have a nice beverage or maybe a snack, and then I find a great deal close to first pitch. That's how it's done, and it's all done on Game Time. They show you your price up front. They show you your view from your seat. They make the ticket buying process simple. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDON to save $20 off your first purchase. Again, great deals, easy ticket buying process, and an extra $20 off your first purchase. What are you waiting for? Download Game Time. Use that promo code LOCKEDON. Terms apply. That's Game Time. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. I encourage you to keep the conversation going with us after the show is over. You can follow me on social media at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. That's over on X, and that's on TikTok as well. And you can follow Tim Daniel at TimDaniel518 over on X as well. Tim, before we jump into the trends thing real quick, can we celebrate for a moment that Key Brian Hayes officially tied Will Benson for home runs on the season?
I feel like
feel some sort of way.
It's perfect that you and I are doing the show together the day that he has his 5th time all season getting on base more than once.
Yeah. Let that sink in for a minute. That's literally just the 5th game that he has played in, which, by the way, it is his 54th game of the year. Only 5 times has he gotten on base at least twice. What a time to be alive. His OPS plus has to have risen from 12. It could even be as high as 13. Yeah, no, literally, that's where his OPS plus is right now.
433 OPS right now, my guy.
It's literally ridiculously low.
I didn't know it could go that low.
I I've seen it negative, but that's only like in like a tiny sample size of like 2 games. So no, that's never mind. Ivan Johnson. Yeah. Ivan Johnson in 4 games has a negative 48 OPS plus. So he's 148% below the league average hitter. Anyway, the whole point being Key Brian Hayes did a thing. He was actually kind of like the big reason why the Reds won.
Yeah. He had a really good defensive play too for to start that double play.
What a day. I also painted a room. It was a weird day. Weird day. It was for my daughter who's coming into the world here in a little bit. So I'm looking forward to it. Weird to say those words. Anyway, I'm excited. There are some trends that have happened here in this month of July that I have loved. And we're going to start first with Elly De La Cruz because dude has been kind of getting raked through the coals from a group of people that already try to rake him through the coals as much as they possibly can. Anytime Elly De La Cruz makes a mistake, there's just this random group of Reds fans that decide to tell everyone about it and decide to make big proclamations about the man's career based on an error that he happens to make at a given moment. Whatever. In the month of July, Tim, 20 ball games, 79 at bats. He has an on-base percentage of .402. And Joseph Daniel Votto says, nice.
Yeah. He's been unbelievable. And when the leadoff, they moved to the leadoff, which you and I and Steve were very, very much like, this needs to happen. A lot of people were coming to us saying, well, he's not a leadoff hitter. And I said to response, Kyle Schwarber occasionally bats leadoff for the Phillies, right? That's going pretty well. It's certainly, getting him more at bats increases his possibility of having situations like this, and he's taken full advantage. You mentioned not only the fact that he's getting on base the way he is, the power stroke is there from both sides of the plate again. And oh, by the way, he's stealing bases again. He is 2 homers and 2 stolen bases away from 2020. And you have to think 30-30 is in play considering they have 2 more full months of baseball.
Yeah. I mean, he's hitting the ball so well. It was something that Chris Welsh even said early on in the broadcast because he had a couple of line drives that have been caught before he hit his home run and a couple of line drives during the Cardinal series really that had found gloves instead of grass. And so he's just like, man, it feels like he is doing all the right things and just not getting all of the right outcomes for them. And then boom, he smashes a homer. He has looked so good here in this month of July. He's completely healthy. I mean, on top of the .402 on base, he's hitting .304 and slugging .557. I mean, he's a complete hitter and he's getting the most at bats, which is something that we have absolutely, honestly, to this point, I've begged for it. And I'm so glad that I'm seeing it. It's another trend. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, it's just nice because it's like, we have these comments all the time. You mention people like, well, he's not a superstar. And I don't ever really like to interact with the comments if they're really negative. But what I've just been doing is copying and pasting his baseball savant link and just putting it as a reply. And I'm like, okay, if that's not a superstar, I don't know what is.
I'm going to fight for him to be a top 10 player in next year's or the next iteration of the Locked On MLB Top 100 because he absolutely should be in the top 10 with the way that he has played so far this season. One other trend that I've noticed this month of July is the fact that the man leading this team in home runs is a man that we had kind of thought was going to lead this team in home runs throughout the season, but he hasn't. He's had a rough year. But for the month of July, Eugenio Suarez has really ticked up the homer count. He's got 6 homers in the month of July, add a couple of doubles in there, and he's slugging a nice clean .493. The rest of his stat line still doesn't look all that great as he's hitting .211 and he's getting on base less than 30% of the time. But we said he's coming here to hit dingers, and that's what Gino has done.
Last 15 games of .545 slugging, his OPS is over 100, and that's all you ask of him. If you're going in there like he's terrible because he strikes out, again, going to shout out our guy Austin Elmore here. I mean, the point of, you're going to have situations where he goes 2 for 17 and has 12 strikeouts in that time frame. But you're also going to have times when he goes 4 for 18 with 4 home runs. So you just live with what you get. So,
well, and even that 2 for 17, that might be a game where he hits 2 home runs and wins you a ball game. Like, I think that's been the whole thing that's kind of been mixed up in this, is that one thing happened last offseason that he had no responsibility for, and that was Kyle Schwarber didn't sign here. And
Yeah.
so when Eugenio Suarez signed here, everybody's just like, all right, he's our answer to Kyle Schwarber. Let's wait a minute on that one. Like, he's just going to hit homers. That's it. That's all he came here to do. Quite frankly, he's made a few defensive plays that have surprised me.
Same.
So I've loved to see that. But the homers were the only thing I was expecting from him. And at least in the month of July, that's what's happening.
He gave me a really nice birthday present on Friday with that homer in St. Louis. I was definitely grateful. Thank you, Gino.
Loved it. Any trends standing out to you this month?
I'm going to go a little less prolific than you are and talk about Brock Burke.
Okay.
I can't believe what the Reds are getting from this guy. He's been a workhorse, like you said. I think he is amongst the major league leaders in appearances. Jeff, in his last 15 games, he's got a 1.88 ERA and a 0.98 WHIP. In that time frame, he's thrown 14 in the third innings. He has 11 strikeouts, and he has also only given up 3 earned runs. To see a left-handed pitcher pitching as much as he does doing this is like basically a Aroldis Chapman-esque. Not that they are the same pitcher by any means. Aroldis Chapman is a freak of nature. You'll never see another one of those again. But to see what he's doing for this team is kind of being stable for a bullpen that's been so up and down all year. I mean, more down than up, obviously. More valleys than peaks in Nick Krall language. He's been excellent for this team, and I don't know what his future with the Reds is. I hope they can find a way to keep him going and to keep him on the team. But, you know, he's certainly a guy that certainly opened a lot of eyes to how good he really is, especially for it's the one, like we said, it's the one Nick Krall tribute. Go, okay, yeah, that worked out.
I'm going to table that idea. I want to talk more about that as we move through the rest of the season, especially if they end up trading him. It'll kind of like make it a little bit more moot, but I'm kind of with you. I wouldn't mind to see him stay with the team past the deadline and ideally sign some sort of extension or something like that. He leads the National League in appearances right now. He's one behind, at least I think one behind. I don't know if Fluharty pitched for Flaherty. It's probably Flaherty, actually. I mispronounced that, for Toronto today. He has 54 appearances, so he won't lead the majors, but he leads the National League in appearances right now. That's an interesting thing for me because, like, coming into this year, and I even remember our friends over at Locked On Angels being like, y'all got a good one in Brock Burke. Take care of him. Don't hurt that guy. He's awesome. And I've seen it. Like, I mean, he has pitched phenomenally well for the Reds this year. There's been so many times where Terry Francona has needed to make a call to the bullpen with a starter or something like that. And you're like, it kind of feels like it's got to be Brock Burke here because there's no Graham Ashcraft. He's hurt. He's not going to be available to pitch. Brock Burke's been the guy that's kind of stepped into that role as much as he possibly can. And I've definitely appreciated the work that he's put in for it. And then, real quick, before we get out of here, Jose Trevino,
right,
has the highest OPS in the month of July. Now, he's only played in 7 ball games, so it's not that much. But he still has over 1,000 OPS right now. Actually, over 1,100 OPS right now. And 3 homers to boot this month. I just wanted to mention that. I don't know what that means. I don't think I'm going to expect that moving forward. Like, he's going to be catcher 1 when Tyler Stephenson gets traded, and he's not all of a sudden going to hit 300, but at least we're seeing that good month from him. Like we saw last year in the month of April. This year it's kind of happening more toward the middle of the season.
Yeah, and it's been fun. Obviously, no one expects him to be the hitter that Tyler Stephenson is, but to see him kind of contribute to the catcher position has been really nice because now it feels like, you're getting something from both those guys. Like you said, yeah, he's going to be he's going to be catcher 1 here in a couple weeks. And hopefully PJ Higgins can pick up what Trevino was doing as the second catcher. Because I can't imagine it's going to be anyone else. I can't imagine Alfredo Duno's here in a couple weeks, as fun as that would be. But
Will Banfield's the only other guy I could think of for that.
Yeah, I'll take PJ Higgins. I'll take my chances. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And Trevino is one of those dudes that's just super easy to root for anyway. So when he does kind of have success like this, you get pretty excited.
I remember he was pushed quite a bit at Reds Fest as far as, like, there were a lot of guys who were like, dude, this guy could be a manager one day. Yeah, so I'm glad to see that he's having some success because there's a lot of folks right now that I think based on what they remember of Trevino for the first couple of months of this season and the last bunch of months from last season, they see him step up to the plate and they're like, oh boy, here we go. He's actually had a pretty good month of July, and that's been fun to see. All right, Tim, I appreciate you for jumping in for Steve today. We know that every single game at the end of it, you'll be live on the Reds postcast. I only missed a couple of them, and one of those was literally for a kidney stone. So, that makes sense. So you can always find Tim at the end of every ball game right here on the Locked On Reds YouTube page and shortly thereafter in your audio feed as he goes live after each and every ball game. Steve will be back with me tomorrow as we'll be breaking down the rest of the Ohio Cup as the Guardians come down here to Kentucky. I mean, Ohio, Cincinnati. Sorry. I think that's the dumbest joke in the world.
I think it's funny.
Cleveland think what's Cleveland? Yeah, I think it's hilarious. Like, what do you care? Like, what do you care? Anyway, it'll be fun to break that down and continue talking about these trade deadline rumors right here on the Locked On Reds podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss anything that we've got coming for you. But until tomorrow, Tim, myself, and Steve will be Locked On Reds every single day.
Do you think someone's going to say something about the fact we're wearing the same hat and everyone thinks we look alike?
I don't know. I also trim my beard a little bit too, so that might also exacerbate things.
True.